Today on History's Tech, we are looking at the Dreadnought. This early 20th century ship was actually the culmination of battleship evolution that started in the late 1800s and carried on to the very early 1900s, when several prominent naval thinkers came up with this idea for a new, only big gun battleship. And it didn't take long for this idea to take off. But let's go ahead and look at the revolutionary new design and ship development, the all big gun ship, the Dreadnought. Now, of course, the idea for the Dreadnought stems in the early, what we now call pre-Dreadnought class battleships, but were originally called the first class battleships. And these early battleships were good, but the concept at the time was the idea behind mixed caliber guns, both large and medium. Large only being for long range, and medium being for more closer combat, which is what they thought these battleships would be doing, as seen with the Battle of Manila Bay. But it wasn't much longer after the Spanish-American War that there were those that started to wonder about a type of battleship that was nothing but large guns and removed all the medium caliber secondary armaments. And it was the Russo-Japanese War that kind of cemented this. During the battles that were taking place during the Russo-Japanese War, there were several conflicts in which ships never got close enough to actually really engage each other. They were engaging each other at distances of up to 12,000 yards. And it was pretty much realized that more than likely, as ships got larger, gun calibers were going to get larger, and there would be more of a need for a all big gun ship. So roughly around the same time, three major naval powers all decided to begin development of their own all big gun design. And contrary to popular belief, the very first all big gun battleship to be laid down was not the Dreadnought, but was in fact the Imperial Japanese Navy Satsuma. And theoretically, had everything gone correctly, the Satsuma would be what we consider the Dreadnought now. And we would not be calling it a Dreadnought class battleship. We'd be calling it the Satsuma class battleship. The problem was the Japanese could not get all of their 12-inch guns built in time and actually had to go with a series of intermediate, smaller caliber 10-inch guns to replace a few of the 12 inches, thus not making it a true all-big gun battleship. So the honor of the first true all-big gun battleship goes to the HMS Dreadnought, what we now consider to be the Dreadnought class battleships. She would be the very first battleship to have all of its main guns to be large caliber, equipped with 5 turrets in twin configuration with 12-inch guns. She was also the very first battleship to be steam turbine powered, making it the fastest battleship in the world at the time it was completed. And right behind her was the development from the United States of what would become the South Carolina class battleships. And while the South Carolina did not have as many guns or was not as fast as the Dreadnought, it did have a super firing twin gun turret setup. And what this meant is that there was a turret behind the first one that was actually elevated and actually allowed them to cross over each other, something that would become standard on future battleships. And all of this will actually start what's known as the Anglo-German arms race. The Germans will get competitive. They need a ship to keep up with it. So they're going to begin ramping up construction, and they're going to build their first all big gun battleship, the Nassau class, but it's only the start for them. They're going to keep going from there. And this actually becomes the spark for a series of arms races to who can build the newest, the best, and the largest fleet of these all large caliber ships. And of course, it is these arms races that will help with the escalation of conflict that will eventually become World War I. Now, besides the Anglo-German arms race, we'll actually have the Austro-Italian naval arms race, which will take place between the Austro-Hungarian Navy versus the Italian Navy. And we'll see the largest non-European arms race take place with the South American Dreadnought race. And this was essentially a competition between Brazil, Chile, and Argentina, and actually Spain got involved in it for naval superiority of Latin America in terms of dreadnoughts. And this arms race actually caused its own problems in Latin America and could be its own video. By the time we get to the 19-teens, every major naval power has begun to develop their own dreadnoughts. And it's actually at this point we get to see some really heavy dreadnought development. And we're actually going to see the beginning of transition from dreadnoughts to what will eventually be known as the Super Dreadnought. And these Super Dreadnoughts typically were 20 to 40% heavier. They started increasing the size of the guns from 12-inch all the way up to 14-inch guns. By 1913, the Germans and the British had begun experimenting with 15-inch guns, and the United States had actually started to implement two different systems. One was known as the all or nothing armor system, which was this very heavy armor system, but only to the areas seen most critical for survival of the ship, while the others would receive nothing. The United States also began development what's known as the standard type battleship, which was its transition from dreadnought to super dreadnought by building a series of battleships that were all one improvement after another in terms of development. And global production of dreadnoughts was actually pretty high up until 1914, when, of course, the world entered into World War I. Now, because of this was a new style of warfare involving everything from machine guns to tanks to aircraft, a lot of industry got redirected towards those. And so the development and building of battleships kind of got put on the back burner as those resources were being allocated elsewhere. Now, interestingly enough, even with all of this ship development, the British basically outnumbered everyone in terms of dreadnought development at the start of World War I. And so most navies tried not to engage them directly out of fear that they would lose what few ships they did have. So what we'll see is many navies begin using both their pre-dreadnought and dreadnought battleships basically as sea-based artillery attacking coastlines and fortifications while trying to find more favorable combat positions for their navies. And over the course of the war, we actually don't see a whole lot of battleship to battleship fighting. But what we do find is there is a heavy vulnerability to underwater based attacks with the older pre dreadnought battleships. And while the newer dreadnoughts are vulnerable, they're nowhere near as vulnerable due to the new armor schemes. And so they're showing that they are worth more than the pre dreadnought battleships. Now, with the peace treaty and the Treaty of Versailles and the end of World War I, we do see a move to de-escalate the arms races that were occurring all over the world in terms of building these new all big gun battleships. And that's where we actually get my specialization, the Washington Naval Treaty of 1922. And basically, this was designed to remove the arms race and prevent it from happening at least for a good while in order to kind of allow everyone to cool down. Now, a lot of navies lost ships. The United States and British and such all agreed to get rid of all their pre-dreadnought battleships and stop construction on any new battleships temporarily. Now, the people who lost it the worst were, of course, the Germans, which were supposed to surrender their entire fleet and they ended up sinking it themselves, and the Japanese, which lost a huge amount of their ships, which is going to lead towards some animosity and hostility, which will help them justify the attack at Pearl Harbor. But this is not the end of the dreadnought or even the super dreadnought. And what we have is people like the British and the United States taking advantage of this and utilizing this opportunity to, one, begin drawing up future plans for when they can build battleships. But two, in accordance with the treaties, they were allowed to upgrade and modernize their existing fleets as long as they didn't exceed certain weight limits and caliber size of their guns. And the United States, for example, will take its dreadnought fleet and modernize it, upgrading its fire control systems, upgrading engines and things like that, and removing components that were basically obsolete after World War I and putting forward a more forward-thinking attitude of how to build a battleship. And they're going to incorporate a lot of things that they want to use on future battleships when they're doing these modernizations. And because of this modernization, the dreadnoughts will actually serve into World War II, where they will actually take place in every theater of battle possible. They will be in the Atlantic. They will work in the Pacific. They will be everything from convoy escorts to direct fire support. We'll even hear the great stories, ships like the USS Texas, which actually flooded itself in order to gain elevation to fire farther. Done because of their smaller size, they're actually able to get in a little bit closer. And so the dreadnought continued to show its value. Now, sadly, due to their age, the development of heavier, faster battleships, such as the fast battleship class, they are all going to be basically removed from service after World War II. They will all be scrapped, destroyed. In the case of this one here, such as the USS Nevada, being utilized in nuclear testing to see how well a battleship could handle up against a nuclear bomb. Now, they were not all destroyed. There is one dreadnought still in existence, the USS Texas, currently located in Galveston, Texas, where it is awaiting the development of its permanent home at Pier 15 in Galveston. And you do have the opportunity to see her, and in the near future, you'll be able to go back on her. But there you have it, a look at the Dreadnought battleships, a complete revolution in shipbuilding design, the idea of this all big gun battleship that's going to launch arms races and change the face of naval warfare until basically we start seeing the aircraft carrier and the submarine become much more important to naval service. But that's it for today. I thank you for joining me, and I look forward to talking to you on the next time.